What's up guys, it's Josh back with another video. And check this out, over the last couple months I've been getting a lot of questions dealing with people setting up their Plex server and running into issues where the server is unable to read the files or actually see the movies. And the solution I've been giving everyone is it's most likely a permissions issue. And so I wanted to do a quick tutorial just showing you guys how to troubleshoot this problem in Linux and attempt to identify and most likely resolve this permissions related problem that can occur when running a Plex media server on Linux. So let's get started. Before we move forward, I wanted to give a quick shout out to CIQ, the official partner of Rocky Linux. Rocky Linux is a Linux distribution that is intended to be a downstream complete binary compatible release using the Red Hat Enterprise Linux operating system source code. The project is led by Gregory Kurtzer, who was the founder of the CentOS project. So check out Rocky Linux at ciq.co. So before we dive into troubleshooting, let's briefly understand how permissions work in Linux. And Linux uses a permission system that grants or restricts access to files and directories. And the three main types of permissions are read, write, and execute, which can be assigned to three different groups. And those are the user, group, and other, or what I sometimes call world. And understanding this will help us diagnose and fix any issue that arise. And let me go through and show you guys a brief example. And I'm currently SSH'd into the server that's running Plex on. As an example, I just basically spun up a server with Plex and install Plex on it right fast. And right now I just want to show you guys permission. So I'm gonna just run the ls command against my home directory. So let's just go ls and then -la. And that's the best way to look at all the permissions. That's basically a long listing of all the files. And I just wanted to give you guys some examples of what it'll actually look like as far as the permissions. So this column is the permissions, and the D represents a directory and the dash actually represents a file. And then after that, we go into our permissions. So just looking at this first one right here, even though that doesn't mean anything, directory, and then the first three or the user permission. So we got read, write, execute. The user, the owner, is Josh. The second group, and that's what I meant by earlier, where it was three different groups. The second group is the actual group of the user, which is Josh as well. And that has read and execute. And then the third group, other, which I sometimes call world, essentially doesn't have any permission. So that means it's denied. So the world is denied, and you won't see that user listed here. That's just essentially the world or other, but it doesn't have any permissions to see anything in this directory or whatever. And then let's talk about the ownership. So the ownership is Josh, that's the owner, and then the group, which every time a user is created in Linux, they create a group as well, and that group has permissions as well that's separate. And so that's why you have Josh twice, because like the user could be different. The user could be the owner of whatever file or directory it is, and then you can have a group associated with that. And that goes a little further than what I wanted to show you guys in this tutorial. But if you guys want to check out more about permissions, ownership, using the chown, chmod commands, I created a video and I'll link it up in the top corner, so you can go check that out if you need to check it out and understand the permissions. Now that we understand the permissions, let's try to identify where this issue is coming from. And common symptoms include Plex server unable to access or play media files, metadata not updating, or permissions related errors in the Plex server log. So we could check that out right fast, and I'll show you guys the location of that now. And it's a long area where this is stored, so I'll just type it out so you guys can see. But let's go cd. All the Plex logs are stored under var lib, and then Plex server or Plex media server, and then library. There's a library directory, and then an application directory, application support directory, and then Plex media server. So I'm gonna just cd to that directory, change directories to it, and then let's list out these files right fast. So I'm gonna go ls, I'm gonna just run the ls command so you can see it all. So this shows you a lot of the files that are associated with the server, and what directory we actually want to go into is the logs directory. And sorry about that, I could have went there, you know, all the way, but I just wanted to show you that directory as well, so you can see where kind of like the beginning of the Plex media server, all its files that are associated with it. And let's go into that log directory, press enter, and then let's ls this directory, and we can see all the logs that are there. So, and also, just so you guys know, this may be in a different location depending on the operating system that you're looking at. Right now I'm looking on Ubuntu 22.04. This is the location for, let's say, Debian based, I think Fedora, CentOS. They're most likely in this same location. But if you have something else like FreeBSD or FreeNAS, ReadyNAS, it'll be in a different location. You know, Synology, Snap, you know, it'll put it in a different location. But this is where you want to go to check the logs. And one of the easiest way to check your logs, you can run the tail command. I won't go through the tail command, but let's just run cat just to make it super simple. And what we want to look at is this Plex media server log, because that's where any permission issues will pop up. So let's go cat, and then let's put that file in there. So Plex media server .log, and then let's grep that. And if you guys don't know grep, I got a video of how to use grep. I'll probably add that in the corner as well, so you guys can check out how to use the grep command. But let's grep, and it's basically a search, and let's grep for permissions, because that's most likely what the error is going to show. So grep permissions, press enter. As you can see, it didn't bring up anything, it didn't find anything in the file. We can also check error. A lot of times, you know, things will show up as an error in here. As you can see, you can just look through the errors and try to see what an issue, or if it's a permission issue in there, and we don't see any permission issues. Okay, now that I showed you guys how to check your logs, let me go down and clear this, because the next step is actually checking the ownership as well as the permission. So I'm a CD and I'm gonna clear this because your files are stored in another location. And let me clear the screen right fast, but the default location that's recommended by Plex, you know, and it's very hard for me to show you, you know, depending on your situation, because people store their files wherever they want to store them. You just have to verify that it has the right ownership as well as permissions. And there's a account that's created when you install your Plex server. It's basically named Plex. It's a service account basically that has access to right to that directory we were just in. And let me show you guys that account right fast so you guys can check it out right fast. So all you have to do is type cat, and then we can just cat out our etc password file. So just press enter. So it's PASSWD. It's under our etc directory. If we cat that out, and if you installed Plex last, you'll see it. But either way, you'll see it in here. If it's you know, if you've installed something else, it may show in a different location. Let me just say that. And so basically what you're looking for is that Plex account. And as you can see, it doesn't have any login permissions, but it does have access to this var lib pass Plex media server. And that's just mainly for the server to, you know, manage all its own files for the application. But this account also needs access to whatever directory where your files are stored. Now let me show you guys the default location right fast, and let's just go cd. I believe when I did a tutorial showing you guys how to set up a Plex media server, I've showed you guys how to create this directory. So it's under our op directory, and then there's a Plex media directory. I think this is the default the way I showed you guys. And then most likely you have either a movies, you know, directory, or let's say a TV shows directory or something like that. And so I'm gonna cd to this directory, and then let's just ls this directory, and I'm gonna run ls-la, and this will list out the directories that we have. And as you can see, we have a movies directory. I did add some movies or a directory to this server just so it'll be fully set up so you guys can kind of see what I did. But these are basically the permissions that it needs. It basically needs read write to the world if it's owned by someone else. And that's why I showed you guys the world there, or the other, meaning other accounts on the system have read and execute. And that's pretty much all Plex needs, you know, unless you want to be able to delete files, which I wouldn't recommend giving Plex that, you know, right. I would only give it read and execute, so it could just, you know, so it could just read and play the videos, because that's essentially what the server is set up for. And as you can see, it's owned by root, but since the world has read and execute, Plex can actually see it. So we really don't need to change the ownership. I just kind of wanted to show you guys that in case, you know, you run into any issues, you could change the ownership by using the chown command. And then most of the time you want to do recursive, so you can push all that ownership changes throughout the tree of that directory, that movies directory or whatever directory you're trying to change the ownership on. And then also you have to use sudo because this is owned by root. And let me move the cursor out the way, but that's essentially the command. And then you want to add the ownership. So let's say we want to make it Plex, so we can go Plex and then Plex. So that's basically the user first, and then the group second, and then world, you know, is understood. And then after that, we put our directory, and we want to make the movies directory. We want to change the ownership to Plex for that directory, and any directory underneath it, it'll do it recursively. And that's essentially what that R does. And let me go down and do it so you guys can kind of see, but it'll ask you for your sudo password, just like any other command you run with sudo. And if we ls this directory again, boom, you'll see that Plex has the ownership of that directory. And so that'll work for you, you know what I'm saying? As long as it really has read and execute, you're good to go. You don't really have to change anything as long as it has read and execute. But let's say it didn't have those read and execute. So let me just ls another directory so you guys can see. So if we go to my home directory, I'm gonna just ls this directory out, and I'm gonna just look at the permissions I forgot. So -la, and this will show my home directory for Josh. And as you can see, if you have a directory under your home directory, the world doesn't have access to it. It's blanked out. So nothing has access to that directory. So Plex ain't gonna be able to see that at all. And so that's why Plex specifies that you want to put the files that you wanted to have access to under here. Otherwise, you're gonna have to change the world to read and execute, which is a security risk when it comes to your personal account. You don't want everybody to have read and execute to your home directory. Your home directory is for your home account, which is Josh. So you don't want anybody to have access to that, because you can have SSH keys under there, you know, all kind of stuff, and people can read it at the end of the day. So you want to have that zeroed out, or not zeroed, yeah, essentially zeroed out, where no one else has permissions other than Josh, which has full control, which is read, write, execute, and then the group Josh, which is the group for the user Josh. So just wanted to kind of show you guys that, but let's hop into the permissions. And in addition to the ownership, you know, incorrect permission settings can also lead to issues. And what you want to use is the chmod command to adjust those permissions accordingly. And it'll be kind of hard for me to go through everything, but it uses numbers in order to modify the permissions. I did a video showing you guys how to set permissions. You can check that video out. I'll probably link that up above as well, so you guys can check that video out if you need help with understanding permissions and the bits that handle the permissions. And I'll just show you guys one right fast, but let's just clear right fast so I can ls this same directory again. So I can show you guys the movie directory again. But as you can see, it has read and execute for the world, read and execute for the group, and read, write, execute for the owner, which is Plex. And just to break the bytes down, or the bits down, I'm sorry, the read, write, execute is a 7, is represented by a 7. And just to break each one of these bits down, the read is represented by a 4, the write is represented by a 2, and the execute is represented by a 1. So essentially that totals up to 7. And it'll make sense once I show you guys the chmod command right fast. So all we have to do, let's say we want to make changes to the permissions on that directory. We can type sudo and then chmod, and then let's do the recursive again. It's the same exact way as chown. You just put that -R, and now you want to specify the permissions. So we want to put a 7, which, you know, it already has the 7 on it. That's fine. But I just want to show you guys something right fast. So let's say 7, right now it's set to 755. Let's say we don't want to give anybody else permissions to that directory. You put a 0 there, and that'll, you know, deny all access. So access will be denied for the world, but Plex, the owner, will have read, write, execute, as well as read and write for, or read and execute for the group, which really doesn't matter as long as the owner is Plex. You know, you'll be able to have read, write, execute, because these permissions come first. So that'll be set for the actual user or the owner of the directory. And so what we want to do is make those changes to our movies directory, and let's go down and press enter. Boom. And I just want to show you guys a simple change, but as you can see, it changed it so that Plex, or the world, doesn't have access to it. So the default, though, what you need to set it at is 755. That's the best permissions in order for your Plex server to access it. And then it doesn't have to have ownership. As long as those permissions are set at 755, you shouldn't have any issues with Plex accessing that directory. Now, after you make those changes, you want to test whether those permission issues have been resolved. And the best way to do that is by restarting the Plex server and attempt to access and play that media, you know, those media files, to ensure everything is working as expected. And if any issues, you know, pop back up or whatever, then you want to retrace those steps that we went through to try to identify and fix any misconfigurations or incorrect settings that we may have made to the server. And so in this tutorial, I tried to cover a step-by-step process in order for you to troubleshoot any permission issues that may pop up on your Linux Plex server. And I hope this helps all the people that I've been getting questions from about these issues that are popping up where they can't get the Plex server to read the files. And like I said, most likely it is a permission issue. And basically what I wanted to do was show you guys how to identify the problem by checking, you know, those server logs for Plex, as well as verifying file and directory ownership, as well as permissions, and granting that Plex user access. And then follow up by testing those changes by restarting the server, you know, and verifying that you have access to the server to watch movies or add movies or adjust things in those directories. And just so you guys know, that Plex server I was working with, I checked it, and those changes that I made, you know, they allowed the Plex server to modify the files, make changes, add new content to it as well. You know what I'm saying? By making those adjustments that I made in order to fix those permission issues, as well as user issues that may or may not have been there, because I didn't see any errors, you know, from the beginning. But I just wanted to make changes and just see if it affects anything, and it didn't affect anything. So we're good to go. As long as you kind of follow that, you should be good. And remember, the permissions, you know, can be a complex topic, but as long as you got the right knowledge and the tools, you can resolve most of these issues. So thanks for watching, and I hope this video was helpful. And if you enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And of course, keep it techie.